Definitely.
All right. Another objection is that this was an hallucination.
Yeah.
All right.
This was my objection. This was the way I tried to get around it, John. When I was an atheist and I'm investigating, I said, wait a minute. These were hallucinations. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to check it out. So I went to a guy. I figured I'll find a qualified individual. I found someone who is a PhD in psychology, who's a professor for over 20 years at a major university in psychology, author of 40 books on psychology, and president of a national association of psychologists and counselors. I figured he's pretty qualified. So I said, could this have been hallucinations? Thinking, hey, I solved it. And he said, no, it can't. I said, why not? He said, Lee, hallucinations are individual events. They cannot be shared. It's not like I can say to you, how'd you like the dream I had last night? You know, you cannot share it. Or as one person said to me, they said, it's not like you can be asleep at night and you wake up your spouse and say, honey, I'm having a dream about a vacation in Maui. Why don't we both go back to sleep? We'll dream it together. We'll save all this money. Well, you can't do that. Hallucinations cannot be shared. They're individual. And then he said something to me, John, I'll never forget. He said, Lee, 500 people experiencing the same hallucination at the same time would be a bigger miracle than the resurrection itself. Mm-hmm. So the idea that it's a hallucination, and I'm shocked that anybody even believes this anymore, and yet recently in the atheistic literature this is being floated again as some explanation for what happened. Some people say, well, it was wishful thinking. They hallucinated because they missed Jesus so much. Oh, we want him to be back. Well, that doesn't explain the Apostle Paul, who was a persecutor of the church as Saul of Tarsus. He didn't want Jesus to be back. Doesn't explain James, a half-brother of Jesus, who didn't follow Jesus during his lifetime. So right there you have, and plus the fact it doesn't deal with the empty tomb.
What about delusions? People say they were just deluded.
Yeah. Delusion, hallucination is something that you imagine is there that isn't. A delusion is when you persist in believing something even though you have good evidence that it's not true. And of course, the famous example is the people who committed suicide because they believed a spaceship was coming. It was hiding behind the comet Hale-Bopp and was going to come get them. Well, they had been told by scientists that is not a spaceship you see hiding behind the comet. That is the planet Mars. But they persisted in their bizarre beliefs and were willing to die for it because they were deluded. That's not the case with the disciples. They had positive, affirmative evidence that Jesus did return from the dead. They touched him. They talked with him. They ate with him. They experienced him in a way that it couldn't be a mistake. It couldn't be a hallucination. It wasn't wishful thinking. And knowing that truth, that they had encountered him, they were willing to die for that truth.